So I wanted to include this video in my collection of Japan videos on YouTube because it was a monumental moment during the trip. Unfortunately, because it is just a long, windy walk through Osaka's Sutenkaku district, the area right around the Sutenkaku Tower, it isn't very interesting on its own. So this was my first official full day in Japan. We flew into the Kansai airport less than 24 hours before the storm hit, and which was Typhoon Jebi, and the typhoon completely put the airport out of commission for over 3 weeks. So coming in even one day later, we would have had a completely derailed trip. Right? It would have been a disaster. So we were very lucky in that respect. So we were staying in the hostel right in the shadow of the Sutenkaku Tower. I was out earlier in the day to do some exploring around Osaka, checking out the temples and shrines, eating at convenience stores, my first official visit to a Japanese convenience store. You know, trying to get in as much Japan travel as possible. I like that, you know, the casual couple just walking through. Just there in the video. Obviously, you know, let me preface this, that it wasn't the terrible disaster, of course, that, you know, everything was pretty much fine. The only thing that I can tell that was really devastated was the airport and really nothing else. But anyway, so around 11:30 we came back to the hostel, and I started to get to work on some of those early photos that I took on the trip and during that first day. We hung out with the international group that was staying at the hostel, you know, just talking and hanging out. Here we met friends from Australia and Sweden, which we would hang out with around Osaka for the rest of our stay there, and then eventually they actually met up back with them when we made it to Tokyo a couple days later, about a week into the trip. And really that was one of the highlights of staying at a hostel during the trip in Japan, is that you actually got to meet and connect with people from around the world, all of you experiencing Japan as foreign visitors and you know, guests of the country. So and everyone, you know, kind of everyone carried different levels of knowledge of what they wanted to see and do, and you got to collaborate, and I got to do a lot of things that I wouldn't have ever even thought of, like eat delicious French toast. But I didn't know that Japan would be famous for its French toast, but indeed has some of the best French toast I've ever had. So Japan as a country and food culture, they just take whatever they get and they make it into the best version of that thing. And that's clearly one of the best reasons to visit Japan. So this was taken during the eye of the storm, and I decided to run out. I was getting restless. I wanted to run out and, you know, obviously see the city that I had limited time in. And I had eaten our supplies and we were hanging out, and I said, I'm going to go out into the storm and I'm going to go get a couple more snacks, and, you know, we don't know how much longer the storm is going to last, so might as well get some food and some drinks and then come back to the hostel. So this video is taken about 2 or 3 hours into the afternoon. The storm was really starting to get, you know, it started around 12:30, and then by the time it was getting dark, it had completely passed. And, you know, after it had passed, around 4 or 5 in the evening, right? We just went out to Dumbantori and to get some very good ramen, and the crowds in Dumbantori were not as intense as the previous night, but a lot of the restaurants were closed, but, you know, there was crowds, we had to push through crowds. There was a ton of people on the streets, so things after the storm went back to normal fairly quickly. So because I had put a quick video and I was tweeting about the storm, I got, as crazy as it sounds, I got a message for someone who worked for the BBC World Service. He called me later that night and asked how things were. Of course, I had to report that there was minimal damage around where we were staying, that things had already gone back to normal, no matter, you know, what the panicky and news media was saying. You know, they were showing sensational videos from the destruction of Kansai Airport, but really where we were was fine. And Jebi, you know, again, it was mostly minor damage, but Jebi would cause some derailment in the trip. One of the things I really wanted to do was climb Mount Inari, and I was unable to do that because of some of the storm damage. But for the most part, the only thing that affected my trip was I had to stay in the hostel and sit around for a couple hours as opposed to going out and seeing Osaka. You know, so and really it didn't affect the amount of the Japan I got to see. So the coolest part of this video is my footage from inside the convenience store, which we've been playing. Taking video or photos inside convenience stores is frowned upon, so I wanted to avoid it. But this footage, it activates my nostalgia. You know, going in, the automatic doors were turned off, so I had the cashier come over and open the door. Honestly, while in Japan, I ate the majority of my meals at convenience stores. It's kind of one of my marks of both shame and pride. The morning of the typhoon, I got an egg sandwich, coffee, chocolate donut for breakfast, and then, you know, like, it's such a simple meal, and yet it set out some kind of monster inside me. So, and you know, I know a lot of people who go to Japan, like, they say this, just like, the food is so good. It's just the convenience store food is very good. It's, you know, better than anything you can make at home or buy at a sandwich shop in the United States. It's except for maybe, like, you know, they're the best delis in New York. It's crazy. So before the storm, I got some chicken karage and rice, which was delicious. And the one thing about any rice you eat in Japan, it's the best rice that you'll have ever. You know, even I microwave this karage and rice meal, and the rice tasted fresh, and I don't know how. Maybe it has something to do with the plum that they put in there, but I have no idea. This one was to try. You know, I was getting more flavors of the cheap soju drink Strong Zero, and the name Strong Zero points out its two best attributes, which is it's a strong, alcoholically strong, and it has very few calories, so that's why it's Strong Zero. Yeah, and then during that run, I actually got what would be my favorite version of the instant fried yakisoba with mayo and some kind of also soy sauce based sauce. That was amazing. Cut most of the trip back because it's kind of redundant. There's not really anything too scary. And then here at the end, one of my travel companions runs out to find me because it took longer than the group that left, you know, 5 minutes before me, because they went to a convenience store that was actually closer. I went to one that was the 7-Eleven that was further away, where there was it was a Family Mart that was much closer. Yeah. Oh well. And then, you know, I do like this quick scene where you can see, like, what's going on. Us battered, you know, in just hanging out.